Okay, right. Good evening, everyone. Trust you are well. Thank you for joining me here this evening where we are going through grade 11. Um, work all the modules so that we can be fully prepared. I know most of you are writing and finishing CAT this week, so let's finish it with a bang. Okay, so for the past 2 days, we've concentrated on all the grade 10 work. We've covered that, we've finished with that. So, for those who have been joining me, there is going to be a little bit of repetition in grade 11, but you'll see it goes into some more detail. So, the things we know, the things we've done, we'll just move on from there. Okay, so module 1.1 looks at all about ICT. We know ICT is our information communication technology, and they begin by talking about the role and value of ICT in the workplace. So we need to just have the perspective of what was it like being in the shops and in workplaces, let's say over 100 years ago. You didn't have computers, you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have, scanners when you want to, pay for your goods and things like that. So have that in mind because what ICT does in the workplace of today, it helps people to work faster and more efficiently. It helps us make better and more informed decisions a lot quicker. It helps us store and make sense of vast quantities of data, identify and adapt, to changing trends. And that's really all you need to know. You don't need to know like every single point, just maybe 2 or 3 points, and that should be it, just to give you an idea on that. So I'm not going to go through everything. Then we know that we are in the information age where there's a massive, massive amount of data. We touched on this yesterday. Um, but we now have technologies that help us seek out and sift through all of that data and information in order to draw out what we want and what we see as valuable information. Okay. And then we can communicate that with others. Now, my favorite slide out of all the grade 11 slides, CAT, the most valuable subject. And the reason is very simple. Even though people don't see CAT as a valuable subject, I know there are still those who don't, but CAT plays a major role when it comes to many careers out there. You can see ICT in general, and CAT is not just like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but it's understanding the ICT, industry as a whole. And when we do that, you can see it has a role to play when it comes to photographers, accountants, adverts, designing, engineers, all of these things. They all use some form of ICT. So what's important here is this term an effective user. Okay. So the effective user is, and we need to be able to identify this, the effective user is one that is able to source and process data and present that information as quickly as possible. So the effective ICT user must be able to go through for example, the internet, check out some, information or data, see what's there, take it, process that into information, and then present it as quickly and as accurately as possible. Okay, that's what makes up an effective user. So we're going to look at the computer again. We know this by now, our information processing cycles. I'm not going to worry about that. We've done that. What is important now is that our computers can be classified according to three things. Number one, their purpose. So, what are you going to be using the computer for? If you're buying a cell phone, same story. What are you going to be using the cell phone for? What is its purpose? That's going to determine everything because it'll determine how powerful it's going to be. I mean, if you're buying a laptop just for a student, what's going to happen? Do you need it to be a very powerful laptop? No. Okay. Because it just needs to do the basics. However, if your purpose is gaming and streaming, well, then you need something a lot more powerful. And that ultimately is going to determine the size. So the purpose, the power, and the size are three classifications of computers. We've spoken about this yesterday, where we mentioned about dedicated devices that are designed to perform just one specific task. If it does more than one thing, folks, it's going to be a general purpose device. And our computers, as such, are general purpose computers. Okay. Why? Because they perform many different functions. Then we go on to portability. So with portability, they deal with the fact that you've got laptops, notebooks, ultrabooks, and netbooks. So let's just look at what the difference is between all of these devices. Our laptops and notebooks, they put them in the same sort of category. Why? Because they generally look similar. But one of the defining differences If you look at a laptop and a notebook next to one another, you'll notice that over here on the right hand side, there's usually like a number pad. If the number pad's not there, you're generally looking at a notebook. If it's there, that should be a full keyboard. So that's going to be our laptop. Okay. The netbook is a cheap, low powered version. It's got no DVD or CD drive in it. And the screen resolution is a lot lower as well. And then from netbook, from your netbook up, right? Your netbook is like the lowest level. From there, moving up, you've got an ultrabook, which is lighter and thinner, but as powerful as an entry level PC. And then from there, you've got your notebook and then your laptop. So just know um, the order of these. Okay. Then we've got our tablets. We've got our consumer tablet. So, folks, your consumer tablet has a touch, um, sensitive monitor, sometimes with a pen as well. We have the user interacting directly with the screen. Special operating systems are on there. It has a longer battery life as well, and usually has some sort of 3G or wireless connectivity. And then your traditional tablet, that's sort of like your tablet PC, right? It's one that's got the reversible screen. So that's completely different to your consumer tablet. But they're just showing you all the different things that are under portable devices. Our smartphones, guys, we know about our smartphones, the operating system, the screen that it has, all of those things. So I'm going to go through that. And that's just on the portability side. Then protecting our information. The theft of hardware is not just about the cost of replacing the hardware. I mean, think about it. If your phone gets stolen, it's not about the phone, it's about what was on the phone. Okay. So it's the information that you don't have a copy of, the photos, the videos, the messages, the music, all those things. That information might be very private or sensitive. The information, um, could be stored on portable devices. So just understand theft is not just about the hardware implications. Okay. It's about everything that's on that hardware. Now, there are some anti theft strategies, things like using, cable locks for your laptops and sometimes for your physical equipment. You can have a chain. I know it sounds weird, but chaining your desktops up. A lot of people, when it comes to like internet cafes, they do that. They use lockable cabinets as well. And some even in the area where the computers are going to be, they use motion sensors. Um, they use motion sensors with an alarm and things like that. Okay. Hi, good evening. Good evening. See Peppa Pig and more. Okay. And then from there, they talk further about protection against now power failure. So this obviously comes in when we're dealing with ESCOM and everything ESCOM's doing. Um, so our UPS that we've got there is an uninterrupted power supply. That's what UPS stands for. Now, your UPS is connected to the main, so it plugs into the wall and it charges, and it will work like a battery. So your computer will be plugged into the UPS, and what will then happen is when the power goes off, your PC won't go off because it's connected to the UPS battery, if I can put it that way. And what's then going to happen is the UPS keeps your PC running. Now, it's not there to keep it running forever, people. It's there only so that you can shut down or basically save your work and shut down your PC correctly. Okay. Right. Continuing, they talk about power settings on your laptops because obviously your laptop is going to be running on battery power. So you just want to make sure that there is enough for that as well. Okay. There they show us a picture of some of our power settings on our laptop. Yes, you can get a shout out. Peppa Pig and more. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us. Okay. So there we have different power plans, balanced power saver, and you can see with the dots that are here, you can see how it differs. You can see with the high performance is of utmost importance, but not so much the battery life. Power saver, it's more battery life than performance. Okay, so they just want you to be able to know the difference between those things. Okay, this we know. That's just normal power settings. Okay, input and output. So input is dealing with everything that gives instructions to the PC. So input can provide the running software with instructions on what to do next. Input can also be data that must still be processed. Okay. Now, we have different ways of giving instructions to the PC or sending things to the PC. We can do that via, touchscreen methods. We can do it via the keyboard, the mouse. We can even do it by sending images, taking images and, they go through to our PC. And that can be via cell phones, consumer tablets, laptops, any of those things. Anything that's going to be used to send something into the PC. Okay. That's going to be part of input. We've also got our scanners. We have spoken about this before. We've got our flatbed scanners, our barcode scanner, and our multifunction printer that has a scanner there as well. So what's going to end up happening is you put your page into your flatbed scanner and it scans it into the PC, and then you have a digital copy of that physical piece of paper. Scanners are affected by two things: resolution, in other words, the quality. So instead of being instead of looking at megapixels, we're looking now at dots per inch. The higher that number, the higher the quality of the image is going to be. Your color depth, this refers to the number of different colors that can be represented by a pixel. So the higher that number, the more beautiful the color is going to be. Okay, simple as that. They give a couple of advantages, guys. You can go through this. This is in your textbook. But the simplest things are that your large documents can be turned into a single digital file. The electronic copies are stored digitally. And old documents can be scanned and stored for future generations. Now, they give us a whole list. The one I do want to touch on is here at the bottom that says we can also scan documents that contain text as an image, and we can use OCR software or optical character recognition software. And what does that do? It recognizes the characters on the page and actually turns that scanned image into a document that I can edit. So if they ask you, how can I take a page, scan it in, and edit it? Well, I can use that. I can use OCR software to allow me to do that. Okay, then we have disadvantages. Some disadvantages. Yes, scanning can be slow. And then the big one, the quality of the digital image, in other words, the quality of the scanned image that you get on your PC, depends mainly on the quality of the original copy. So if your original page is all crumpled up and it's dirty and that, then the image that's going to come through is going to look crumpled up and dirty, even though it's a digital version. Okay. Tiffany, thank you very much. No problem at all. No problem at all. This is what the channel is here for. Right. And then we've got digital cameras. Okay. Now, this one over here on top, this is what we call a point and shoot camera. Okay. So we know we've got cell phone cameras, we've got our digital cameras, we've got our top end cameras, but I just want to touch on this. Our camera over here, this is known as our point and shoot. This one doesn't take extra lenses, it doesn't have a huge amount of features. It's mainly just to take with you and to point and shoot. A lot of people don't even have this anymore. This used to be something big that a lot of folks used to have. I used to have a few of them. But our cell phones have basically replaced that. And people have gone, from these cameras all the way over to smartphones and then to the high end cameras. Now, you need to understand why we have digital cameras, because before there was a totally different way to actually take photos. It was much longer. The only way to capture it was with a film camera. So you had to have a certain roll of film that could only take from 12 to 36 images. You had to go and process it at a shop. You had to pay for every photo that was printed, and you couldn't really edit anything. Okay. Now we know we can take a picture, we can take multiple pictures, we can edit the picture on our phone before we even do anything. In fact, maybe I should ask this: when was the last time we printed a photo? You know, we we hardly do that. We have it on our hard drives, on our phones, but we hardly print anything. So these are the specs we need to know. Um, Looking at the difference between these two, these are the kind of things that you should be looking at when you want to buy a digital camera or even a smartphone that has a high quality camera. You want to ask about the sensor size. The sensor size is it basically indicates how much light can come in through the lens. Obviously, the more light that can come in, the better the picture quality is going to be. There's a difference also between optical and digital zoom. Your your optical zoom is where you can zoom into an image without the image, distorting or getting all like blocky. Your digital zoom is where it goes a bit blocky. Okay. The resolution, we know that relates to the quality of the image. And then the ISO rating is the camera's sensitivity to light. Okay. That is also very, very important. Okay. Yes, I will actually, I think I do have on the channel. You must just check under the videos that I have on the old exam papers. I think there was a grade 11 and there's a grade 10 walkthrough and a grade 12. In the description, there is a link. In fact, I'm going to put it here now. I think let me just go there quickly to all my documents. Okay, let me just go there. Get this link. Let's see. Okay, folks, so what I'm sharing now, this link that I'm sharing over here, this is a link to my Google Drive. This is, this has got info on grade 10, 11, and 12, practical and theory papers, everything I've also gone through on the channel through the videos. Everything is there. So feel free to go and have a look, download, you know, enjoy yourself. Okay. This is your last week for CAT before the year is over. All right. So let's just knock it out of the park completely. No problem at all, Tiffany. Okay, then we've got biometric input. Now we know this is measuring the unique biological features of a person. So using your hand, we mentioned this yesterday, your hand, your eye, things like that, in order to actually get in, using it as a security feature. So we have some advantages, high security, things like that. It makes it very difficult for somebody to get in. It's tied to a single person. It is expensive to implement, needs additional equipment, but those are the main things that limit your biometric input. Okay, and then I'm going to do input. Okay, so just hang on for me. I will be back shortly. Just give me 2 minutes. Right. So yesterday we did touch on ATMs, so I'm not going to go too much in that. We've done all of that. Our POS systems. So these are our point of sale systems, and they use barcodes and RFID tags. Okay. So we need to know what these things do. Now, yesterday we did touch on barcodes where we can scan a barcode, it's got info in it. And then when we scan the barcode, it then gives us that particular information. An RFID tag stores data on the tag which can be detected wirelessly. So many times when people are doing, these marathons and things like that, they have a little RFID tag on their sweater. And this is how they can keep track of everybody within the race, knowing exactly where they are, what position and things like that. The two main goals is faster processing at tills with your barcodes and your RFID tags, and also better stock control. So if you look at this picture, we know this from our textbooks, they give us this whole story here. And we just think it's going to the till, scanning, and that's the end of it. But it's not. Okay. When we buy something, it contacts the stock control, it does all of those things to make sure every bit of this POS system is updated, with everything that has been bought or sold. Okay. There are some advantages and disadvantages. Much faster than typing the prices in on a keyboard, better than writing it out as well. And it records exactly how many items are being sold and tracks how much stock is also left. Okay. Obviously, these systems are based on being online, so you need a connection to the internet. Yeah, if that thing goes down, it can cost millions of rands, and it's expensive to obviously set up with all the equipment. Okay. Our touch screens, we know how these work, so I'm not going to worry too much with that. We know how we input, um, instructions in there, so that's all fine. I'm not going to worry with that. That's fine. Okay, our output. The purpose of output is to do what? To provide the user with feedback in their interaction with the computing device they are using. Provides the user with a more permanent or non-electronic copy of the results of processing. So when we're saying this and we're saying it provides the user with feedback, we type in instructions into our PC. What we see on the screen is the result of us typing that out. Okay. Um, they give us different types of output. We've got visual output, sound output, touch output. A lot of these things we already know. So you'll see we'll be just breezing through a lot of this. Our display devices. A display device, we know it takes the image from our PC, what we're currently seeing, and it displays it, onto another surface, whether it's a wall or a screen via a display device like a projector. It's very nice because obviously we can make the picture, a lot bigger, display it for more people to see. Um, Okay, but the output, okay, obviously it's not permanent, can lead to eye strain and headaches. Sorry, let me just disable that. And your work is not private. Okay, so that's all fine. Again, you only need to know maybe one or two of these advantages and disadvantages. What's important is the limitation. With a display device like a projector, the quality is related to the size, and usually you need a dark area in order to get a nice clear picture. The size limits the portability. How are display devices used? Well, there are display options that allow the user to make choices. So you can decide, whether you want to like extend your desktop over your projector, or you can decide what you want to actually display on the screen. That's really what they're getting at. Then we touched on our monitors yesterday. We spoke also about the resolution. We know again, it's the number of pixels horizontally and vertically. That's why we have numbers like that 1920 by 1440. The higher the numbers, the higher the quality of the image is going to be. The aspect ratio is the relationship between the width and height of the screen. The contrast ratio is the difference between the darkest black and the whitest white. And then your response time is how quickly the monitor updates its pixels. So when you are buying a monitor, whether it's a gaming monitor, whether it's a TV, okay, for home, guys, you need to look at what you are going to be using this device for, and then check it according to these items. Check the response time, because obviously if it's got a very low response time, it means it's going to move very, very quickly between one pixel and another, or how quickly the monitor can update that. Your contrast ratio, you want to have that be quite high so that there's a huge difference between the darkest black and the whitest white. So obviously the colors come through more vividly, right? So those are things, whether you're buying a gaming laptop, a gaming monitor, normal monitor, or TV, the same applies to all of them. Okay. And then we know our size is measured diagonally in inches. We have interactive whiteboards. I think we know how these work, where your projector is projecting an image onto a whiteboard, and it allows for the teachers now to be able, or whoever, to be able to interact with that image on the screen and actually make changes to it. Okay, not worry too much with advantage in this. They don't really ask much of that. Then with our printers, grade 10 and 11 level, they want you to know how they work and what the differences are. Okay. Inkjets and laser. We did this yesterday, so I'm not going to go through it again. But we need to know when you get to grade 11 and then grade 12, they're going to ask you a scenario based on this. So they might say to you that John wants to start a home office. He's going to print about 500 pages a month. He's going to be doing invoicing. What sort of printer should he use? Well, we now know how much he's going to print a month. Speed is not an issue. Resolution, well, if it's going to be printing invoices, you want it to be of high quality. So all of that would tell me that it's going to be a laser printer, which is expensive at the beginning, but later on it is going to be cheaper. Okay, cheaper to maintain. Expensive to buy, but cheaper to maintain. And then we also have wireless technology output. They do ask a lot of questions with regards to newer technologies like wireless. So just know how to define Wi-Fi, and then also the different ways in which wireless is used. I mean, we are now using like Bluetooth speakers, Bluetooth headphones, all of that. All of that falls under wireless technology. And obviously, if it's bringing something out of the device, like a Bluetooth speaker or Bluetooth headphones, those are examples of our output. Okay. Now, how does it all work? Well, number one, with plug and play. We identified this yesterday. We spoke about plug and play as a major feature of any operating system because it identifies what is being connected. So you'll see on your phone the fact that you can go to your Bluetooth, go and search for devices, and it picks up that there's a device that's to do with your plug and play, right? If I plug something into my laptop, a flash drive, that's going to be plug and play. Okay. Now, we also chatted about drivers yesterday, so you'll see some of the same things coming through. And what does that driver do? It tells the operating system exactly how to work with the hardware device. Now, here's a very important part. And this was asked yesterday. Input and output for physically challenged users. Okay? Input and output for physically challenged users. Now, we need to understand one thing. There are those users who are blind and those who are visually impaired. There's a big difference between the two. Okay. Some are visually impaired. That means if you have contacts, if you have glasses, you are visually impaired. If your sight is not 100%, you are visually impaired. Blind means blind, you can't see. Okay. That's it. You cannot see. So using a braille keyboard and braille display, that's for someone that's blind. Software such as speech recognition, that is not always for someone that's blind, because text to speech also, that could be for someone who's very badly visually impaired, right? Magnification devices, visually impaired. Large key keyboards, also for those who are visually impaired. So just know the difference between a person having a problem with their eyesight and someone being completely blind. It's the same with those who are hearing impaired. So they've got a bit of a problem with their hearing, as opposed to being completely deaf. You can have on-screen notices, vibration devices. Okay, those are just two that we can use. Maybe people have motor control issues, so they can then use eye tracking devices. Now, when we talk about motor control, we're talking about them not having control over using their limbs correctly or like properly, if I can put it that way. So the person might not have the ability to grip a mouse, or to actually type on a keyboard. So they can use eye tracking devices, head movement devices, large key keyboards, large trackballs as well. They can even use joysticks or foot pedal control devices. There are a number of them. There's even sip and puff devices where you suck and blow into a straw, in different ways to actually control things on the computer. It's just amazing what they can do. Then we've got input and output and health issues as well. And we want to remember, this is things we touched on yesterday as well, not to sit for long hours, do appropriate exercises, do not use headphones to drown out surrounding sound. And you also want to change the monitor setting so that it doesn't hurt your eyes. Okay, so that's module 1.2. Okay, let's look now at module 1.3, storage, memory, and processing. Right. Now, this is very important. The difference between memory and storage. please bear the following in mind. You have primary memory and you have secondary memory. So they can ask you, well, what is primary memory? And you'll indicate that primary memory is RAM. So what is RAM? RAM is a volatile storage area. It's a temporary storage area where instructions are kept, on applications and tasks that are currently open. Your secondary memory relates to your hard drive. Okay. So you can see there, my primary memory is between 1 and 16 gigs. My secondary memory is like, upwards of a couple of hundred gigs, up to like 1 terabyte and more. So just remember, when they ask you what the primary memory is, it's going to be your RAM. Your secondary memory is your hard drive. So there we go again. Our memory, it holds the data and instructions that the computer is using while it is on. Okay? It is electronic, it is fast, but it is more expensive per gig. Our storage is used for us to save things on, right? To save our files. Okay? That's the main purpose there. It is slow, but it is cheaper per gig. And then they give us something like this. Now, for grade 10, 11, and 12, in fact, mostly for 11 and 12, this is extremely important. Okay. When you see a list of specs like this, and I ask you, from the list that you see here, is this a laptop or is it a desktop? And maybe let's see from those who are here what you would say this actually is. If you look at these specs over here, is this talking about a laptop or is it talking about a desktop? Okay, so okay, Nathan, desktop, okay. Now, I want us to actually look at this. Laptops and desktops, do they both have CPUs? Yes, they do. Both have motherboards? Yes. Both have hard drives? Yes. RAM? Yes. DVD writers? Yes. Do they both have Windows? Yes. Do they both have screens? Yes, they do. Okay. Do they both have a keyboard and a mouse? Yes, they do. However, that's one of your first clues. In a laptop, the keyboard and mouse, they are built into the device. So they're not going to tell you, well, with your laptop, hi guys, you're going to get a free keyboard and mouse. Why? Because it's built into the device. So the mere fact that they are telling you here that you're getting a keyboard and a mouse means these are separate devices. Okay. So that's already one clue as to whether this is a desktop or laptop. But the main one, the main item, Nathan, you are correct. It is a desktop because it is going to be this item on top here, ATX case. That ATX case, that's your system unit. Your PSU is your power supply. So your system unit is your tower, your box with a power supply. Is that a laptop? No, that refers to a desktop. So these items over here relate to a desktop machine. Okay. Now there they show us if, in fact, let me just go back. When you look at your RAM over here and your hard drive, remember we said the primary memory is your RAM, secondary memory is your hard drive. So they might ask you, well, identify the size of the secondary memory, and it'll be your 250 gig hard drive. Identify the size of your primary memory, and that's your 4 gigs of RAM. For those in grade 12, I want you just to remember that something like this can actually make up 50 marks worth of questions, because I can ask you, um, what's the model of the CPU? I can ask you, what's the size of the hard drive? In what is it measured? Can you identify the optical drive for me? What's the version of the operating system? What does it mean when it says starter edition next to the operating system? Then I could ask you about the keyboard and mouse and advantages of a normal keyboard and mouse over a wireless keyboard and mouse. I can ask you about the screen, the resolution, the size, all those things. So it just shows you how many questions can actually be asked just from a list like this. Okay, there they give us an example of our external drive, and many of us do have external drives. Right, then we have online storage. This is storing our files online, like with something like Dropbox. And guys, it's not going onto some weird cloud somewhere. It's actually going onto a server that's sitting somewhere else. Okay, that's all it is. There they show us online storage. Here we've got all our PCs, the internet, and then it's going to a server that's sitting somewhere else with all of those files on there. Okay, so that's online storage. We know there are multiple advantages where we can access it from anywhere. We can make changes in one place and it synchronizes everywhere else. We don't have to worry about backup and security. However, we can only access it when we have access to the internet. Um, some data might not be usable over slow connections, and we're obviously going to use a lot of data with that. And we don't have control over the backup and security. So, as much as that was an advantage, it is also a disadvantage. Now, they just want us to look at the difference between online storage and cloud computing. Okay. So, online storage differs from cloud computing because it involves, or it only involves storing files online. Sorry, I just want to do something quickly. Okay. So, cloud computing is where we are actually going to be using a program that's based on the internet. Online storage is where we are storing files or saving files onto a server on the internet. Then they talk about the difference between a backup. Now, we know a backup is where we make a copy or duplicate of our files and we save it somewhere else. Archiving, like when you archive in WhatsApp, right? Archiving refers to storing the files somewhere else. Okay, so we're not making a copy of it, we're actually moving those files from one area to another. All right, then they start going into a little bit of basic troubleshooting, and they just mention here, things like managing your backups, problems if you have problems with your CDs and DVDs. If you have problems with disk scanning, you can use things like your scan disk, to check these things. You can format and reformat. You can use disk defragmentation, which is a tool that reorganizes the parts of the files. You can use a disk cleanup wizard if your hard drive is filling up. So it's just a few tips that they're giving you as far as basic troubleshooting. These things usually come up when they give you a scenario and they tell you, this and this has happened. What can the person do? So please do go through that. All right, then we've got processing. This is where the magic happens inside the computing device with your processor. Okay, your four main components dealing with this is your motherboard, which is your large circuit board, your CPU, your RAM, and your ROM. So just remember that when you switch the PC on, whether it's your computer, your desktop computer, or your laptop, even when you switch on your phone, ROM is the first thing that comes on and says, "Hello, I've got instructions here. Check the hardware. Is everything working? Yes, yes, yes. Where's the hard drive? Here it is. Okay, on the hard drive, where is the operating system? Here it is." And then it begins to load the operating system. That's why when you switch on your desktop or your laptop, it has your black and white screen first, shows you a couple of words, a couple of details, and then you start seeing the Windows logo come up. And that's because ROM has done what it needs to, loads the operating system, and then it can go and relax. Okay, there they show us exactly how it starts up our booting process. People, when they talk about booting, they're showing us it's checking the keyboard, all the hardware, everything, um, getting from your start button all the way through to logging into Windows. That is our booting up process. Okay, so that's fine. Right, then we touch in software. I think this will most likely be our last one. We spoke about application software already. Okay, so I'm not going to go into that. That's just revision. We know we have different types of application software. So first things first, just define application software. Again, it's a group of programs that perform a specific task for the user. Okay, so multimedia software, whether it's Adobe Flash, whether it's VLC media player, multimedia, meaning it's able to play many different types of media. VLC media player can play movies, can play video files, it can play music, all those type of things. We're also finding a lot of multimedia textbooks that people can use through tablets. And I know a number of different schools have already implemented textbooks on tablets and tablets through to the learners as well. You get communications software. So they're just showing you all the different types of software that you can get. Why are they showing us this? Because with all of this, we can get what we call compatibility issues. Now, this is when something can't work with something else. I'm just going to put it very, very simply. So if you and your girlfriend are not compatible, it means the two of you are not going to gel. Okay, the two of you cannot be together because there's some or other issues that is causing a problem between the two of you being compatible, which means things are not going to work out. And if it's not, guys, let it go. Okay, just let it go. So oh, sorry, my sons are feeding me pancakes here while I'm busy with this. There might be a reason for compatibility issues. Think about this. When Microsoft Office comes out with a new version, like Office 2019 or something like that, not everybody gets up immediately and says, oh, let's go buy Office 2019. We need to all go and buy it right now. It doesn't work like that. Okay? So you can have compatibility issues in a company where, half of the company is still on 2010, the other quarters on 2013, and the others are working on a different one. And the problem comes in when they start sharing files or try to share files among one another. This is why you find a lot of companies, they'll have the same software. They'll have the same programs so that there's no compatibility issues. Okay, because it can be a massive, massive problem. Some solutions, well, we can export the documents in a different format. We can import the documents in a different format as well. We can upgrade the software, or we can standardize, and this is the big one, we can standardize the software so that, let's say, for example, in your school, everybody uses Office 2016. Everybody uses Windows 10. That means you cannot have any compatibility issues because there is standardization. Now, updating your software. I'm sure you've seen this on your phones when you need to update your apps and you're asking why? Why must I do this? Or you pause all those updates and you wait to connect to somebody else's Wi-Fi so that you can just run all those updates. Okay, there's a reason for that. There are things called software bugs, software errors. Okay, software is not perfect. And from time to time, developers who have created the software, they pick up problems. I mean, they always use these two examples where they say, some people have died because the software responsible for calculating the radiation dosage in the cancer treatment was faulty and it delivered too much radiation to patients. So again, this is major problems. So when there's an update, you do want to update your software. Okay. Here they give us a couple of tools for combating software bugs. A lot of companies do a lot of beta testing. So they'll send out the program, have people use it for free, and they want people to let them know if there was any problem. So when you see like your beta testing, just know they are testing with the public to see if there's any problems. Microsoft makes use of error reporting. So if your program crashes, you can actually report the problem to Microsoft so that they know this happened, this was the issue, this is why it happened, and then they can fix it. Okay. It also helps you to keep your software up to date so that it can keep working better. We have different versions of software. Okay, I have mentioned that already. Just know the difference, people, between an update, an upgrade, and a service pack. So an update is where some software has obviously our software has the option to do this automatically. But your update is where the program itself is going to change something small. Okay, you've got a little update, it fixes something, everything's fine after that. With an upgrade, you usually have to pay to go to the newest released version of that program. So I know Windows 10 did a free upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. That's an upgrade, going to a whole new operating system. An update would be going from Windows 10 to Windows 10 version 2, that sort of thing. A service pack, however, is a collection of all the updates for the last period of time. So if, for example, let's say Windows 7, or let's just use Windows 10. Windows 10 comes out, and within the first year, they pick up, a lot of updates. When you get to the end of that year and you install Windows 10, you'll most probably have Windows 10 Service Pack 1, which will have all the updates for that past year. Okay, so just understand the difference between update, upgrade, and service pack. Okay, online software, we have spoken a little bit about this. Our cloud computing, where we are using the programs online. Okay, now it's very nice because obviously we're not installing anything on our PC, but just understand that software like this needs an internet connection. If you don't have one, it means you can't use it. You've got no control again over the data and backup policy, similar to what we had with our cloud storage. Oh, sorry, our online storage. So yeah, the same is really going to apply there. Okay, nice advantages of the fact that, well, our software is always up to date. We don't have to download or install anything, and it doesn't take up any space on our local hard drive. Okay, so that's fine. Something like Google Docs is an example of like a sort of a Word type program, where you've got a word processor. You've also got, as part of this, presentation tools and spreadsheet applications, completely free, but it's fully on the internet. So you need internet access to be able to use that. So they'll always ask you about the physically challenged users. Well, how do they use the software? Well, you've got your ease of access center. You've got your speech recognition area as well that allows us to do that. We can magnify an area of the screen. We can use text to speech narration. We can make the mouse cursor larger. We can increase the contrast, display settings. So we have a number of things we can do to just make it easier for the person to actually use the software that is on the PC. Okay, they tell us all modern operating systems contain special settings and utilities that help make the computer easier for the disabled person to use. We've seen those before already. Yeah, they just tell us giving visual notices, sticky keys, and again, as I mentioned, speech recognition. So there are many companies that design software for different purposes. They design software for voice recognition, speech synthesis, screen magnification, screen reading, all of these, camera tracking. So companies do all of these things, and they improve on what the operating system offers. Remember, your operating system has that utility software. So a lot of these other companies have seen, no, man, listen, let's go and make something better, something that can do even more. So for example, Magic Software is a screen magnification software that increases the size of what is seen on the computer screen. Just have a look at that picture over there, and you can see how big everything is compared to the normal magnifier that you have in Windows. Okay, let me see. 1.5. Yeah, I know it's almost 7 o'clock. Guys, can I do one more module? Can I do 1.5? Let me know. Okay. Let's go. Right. So 1.5, this will then be the last one for tonight, because I can see we're going to finish grade 11 tomorrow night, and then those who are still with me for grade 12, Thursday evening, we'll then just have it for an open Q&A session Thursday evening. So any questions that you've got on anything, come with that, and then we can deal with it there. Okay, so they talk about system requirements. Now, when you buy a game, when you buy a program, anything like that, there are system requirements. So what are we talking about? We're talking about what the software needs from the hardware of the computer to work correctly. So if, for example, if I go and buy, they give us Microsoft Office 2010 over there, and I look at the system requirements, these are the technical specifications of computers that acts as a guide as to what the computer is capable of. Now, just putting it in simple terms, it's the hardware that the software requires in order to work properly. End of story. Okay. There are, however, two types of system requirements. There are what we call the minimum system requirements and the recommended system requirements. Now, whenever you go and buy software, if you're buying a PC game as well, you want to look at the recommended and not the minimum. Why? Because the minimum is exactly that. It's the least amount of hardware specs needed to run that piece of software, but just to run it, like run it, and it's still glitching a bit, here and there. But if you want the software or the program or the game to run smoothly, to run optimally, then you do want to be at the recommended level or higher. Okay. So most of the things that they look at when it comes to system requirements is to tell you how much hard drive space you will need for that game or that program, how much memory it will need to work at the minimum level or optimally, and then your processor as well. With games, they're going to have an additional one where it talks about the graphics card and maybe the sound card that you might need there as well. Okay. Some of them even include a minimum screen resolution and specialized hardware for specific applications. Okay. So, like I've mentioned, games are going to be a lot different. So yeah, that's all they're really trying to tell us there. Okay, managing files. We know how to manage files. I think there was just, yeah, here we go. Dealing with hardware failure. So hardware failure is when your physical components are breaking down, they are failing, they are getting damaged. Okay. Now, examples of using hardware incorrectly, and I know some of you are going to laugh at this, forcing connectors into wrong slots. I know so many people do this. Okay. They take the USB cable or flash drive and they're plugging it into the back of the TV. They're not really looking and they're forcing this thing in. Why is this thing not working? In the meantime, what's happening? What's happening? They're trying to force it into an HDMI slot. Okay, so that can damage that HDMI slot and then nobody will be able to use that. You might not be using the correct consumables. This is when you have an inkjet printer and you're not paying attention to the model of your inkjet printer and you're using the incorrect cartridge, the incorrect ink in there. You could be spilling liquids on equipment, not protecting the equipment against power surges, dropping equipment. Not even going to go there. How many times have you dropped your phone? Okay. So that's also a problem there. Some other or some other reasons why physical components fail, they're subject to repeated power failures. I know this is why, like fridges, freezers, microwaves, they're all busy packing up when we have all of this load shedding on a continuous basis. And there they just mentioned a couple of others as well. Okay, that was short. Let me continue. So the dark side of computing. This will probably be the last one because I think after this we're going to networks. So we'll leave that for tomorrow. On the dark side, we have human errors. Okay, so we have human errors and we have computer criminals. So on the human error side, all they're saying is that, listen, with this dark side of computing, people can make errors when it comes to using the computer. And we know information is key and information accuracy is even more crucial. So errors and failures of computer systems can be caused by, amongst other things, bad programming, so a problem from the program itself, poor training by the people who are supposed to use the system, and then poor procedures for capturing the data as well. And we know that if that doesn't work well, it breaks down the trust, it messes up the decision making, and ultimately it messes with the product quality. Okay. When we have that breakdown in user trust because the information is not accurate, it decreases the efficiency, the morale, okay, all of those type of things. Not really much that you need to know here. I think that's about it on the people side. Right. Now, what's important here is when it comes to product quality, we shouldn't take everything you're told for granted. We need to learn the skills to interpret and judge quality information and check the accuracy and relevance before we consider using it. So somebody tells you or gives you information about a particular product and they say, this and this is the case and it's a good product and this is why it's good, but they haven't even tried it out for themselves. So we don't take that for granted. We try and see for ourselves if this is a good product to go for. Um, so yeah, they just touch on those things. We've touched on data protection. Yes, and then the criminal side of things. So this is massively important. This comes up in grade 11 and grade 12 all the time. Social engineering. This is manipulating people to get access to their secrets. Okay. Um, they can, use things like telling you you've won the lotto, offering you a job. In fact, there's a scam going around at the moment with Transnet where they're telling people via WhatsApp they can get jobs and they'll come and pick them up for the interview and all this type of thing. Telling you of an unexpected inheritance from a relative you never had. Okay. Offering you a business opportunity, telling you there's a problem with your online bank, there's a virus on your computer and only they can sort it out, those type of things. It all falls under social engineering. So point number one, you want to make sure you've got a very good antivirus system on your PC. It's updated and you're scanning your PC regularly. Then when you get these scams, remember, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Okay. Know the people you work with. Don't trust strangers. Be suspicious. Think before you act. Otherwise, you are going to be scammed left, right, and center. Okay. There is computer misuse, obviously, where physical computer resources are used without permission or for tasks not authorized by the owner. Okay. So people can misuse, even though they have internet access at school, they can be sitting on Netflix, instead of doing what they're supposed to be doing. Is the invasion of privacy. And I don't know why they always use this example. Looking at your boyfriend or girlfriend's SMS messages on their phone without them knowing. Listen, none of us should be doing something like this, because if you feel the need to do that, do me a favor, rather get out of that relationship. It's just going to be toxic. Okay. But they just mentioned about the invasion of privacy. And obviously, one of the results, is a loss of productivity. You're going to break that person's trust as well. Okay. Yeah, Nathan. Yeah, Nathan. We need to touch on those things at times, unfortunately. Okay. um, the results of the invasion of privacy. When people, are able to get into your systems, whether it's your computer, your phone, and things, they can steal your identity. There can be a loss of productivity. This is where they can, people hack into your Facebook account and things like that, and then they post weird and wonderful things, as if it's you, but it's not. It's not even you. Okay, where am I now? Yeah. Malware. Now we know malware is malicious software. It's harmful software, and there are consequences that go with that. Because when you have malware attacks and things like that, there's financial cost, there's loss of productivity, and there are personal implications because people can get hurt through this as well. You've got time wasted. You've got trust breaking down. There's just a whole lot of things that are some of the social consequences, right, of malware. All right. So that's it, guys. I'm going to pick up. You can see our next module is on networks. So I'm going to finish the grade 11 syllabus tomorrow. And I think that'll really be that. Then we'll make Wednesday. What's tonight? Yeah, Thursday will be a Q&A session. So tomorrow night might be a little bit shorter, just so that we can finish the grade 11 curriculum and just breeze through part of the grade 12, take your questions, and then Thursday evening, just pure Q&A. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me again. I'm glad to have you with me. Guys, thank you so much. And I will see you tomorrow evening. Good luck with all your prep work.